As soon as the teacher praised Alaric Storm's work, he abruptly stood, grabbed his stuff, and walked out. He didn't even glance back, explain himself, or apologize to Violet. She just watched him go, grinding her teeth, unable to follow him and make a scene. Class ended a few minutes later, but when Violet stepped out, Alaric was gone. So much for thinking he was different. She should have known better. Birds of a feather flock together, right? Asher was a psycho. Roman was a jerk. Griffin was violent. And the cute, innocent Alaric Storm? Totally fake. And the fact that she'd been attracted to all four of them on different levels, granted, on her first day at Lunaris Academy, worried her. Maybe she still was attracted to them. Not just one, but four? Seriously? She knew better than to make a move on any of them, though. Girls probably threw themselves at those guys constantly. Violet wasn't about to be another notch on their bedposts. Whatever this weird attraction was, she'd get over it. Maybe it's because I haven't, Violet was old-fashioned. She wanted to save herself for someone special. The bullies at her old school had teased her mercilessly for it, but she hadn't let them get to her. It was her body, her choice, not theirs. But now, with her hormones going haywire, she wondered if waiting was such a good idea. Being surrounded by so many hot werewolves had to be a factor. She hadn't been around any at her old school. Maybe I should just find some nice, good-looking werewolf and get it over with. That way, she could get over her crazy fascination with those four jerks. Little did she know, she'd need a whole lot of luck with that, considering a certain alpha had his eye on her. Violet headed for the girls' locker room. PE was next. As expected, the locker room was totally luxurious, like something out of a fancy health club. Like every other room at Lunaris, it was huge. Rows of shiny wooden lockers lined the walls, each with a nameplate. The floor was polished tile, and the air smelled like lavender. A wall of full-length mirrors ran down one side, and private shower stalls with frosted glass doors lined the other. Thank goodness. Violet knew how brutal communal showers could be. The locker room buzzed with activity. Girls chatted by the mirrors, fixing their hair and makeup. Why wear makeup to gym class? As if answering her question, Violet overheard a girl say, I gotta keep my look on point even when I'm sweating. She giggled, and her friend gave her a fake smile. Whatever. Violet noticed some girls sitting on benches, changing into their gym clothes. A blonde girl with her back turned was talking to them, and Violet froze when she recognized the voice. It was Alice. Oh, crap. Violet spun around and hurried to find her locker, ignoring the curious stare she got. Locker 109. She quickly spun the combination lock. Click. Inside her gym uniform was neatly folded. She grabbed it, planning to change in the stall, and hoping Alice would be gone by then. But the instant Violet turned around, Hello, Violet! Alice was right in front of her. Jeez! Violet yelped, clutching her chest. You scared me. Why are you so jumpy? Alice asked innocently. Usually people who act like that have done something wrong, or are hiding something. Maybe don't sneak up on people like that. Violet snapped. Alice immediately went quiet, her face falling. Feeling guilty, Violet apologized. Sorry for yelling. Forgiven! Alice chirped instantly, her eyes shining with adoration. Violet frowned. The more she watched Alice, the more she suspected something was off. She acted almost like a little kid. Was she not all there? Now that changing in a stall was out of the question, Violet had no choice but to change right there. It was all girls, and she wasn't shy about her body. The gym uniform was a sleek black top with bright green stripes down the sides, kind of like zebra stripes. The school logo was on the left side of the chest. The matching black leggings had the same green stripes down the calves. The whole outfit came with cool sneakers. Violet set her bag on the nearest bench and started to undress. She was reaching for her gym top when she saw Alice staring at her, specifically at her chest, with a stunned expression. If it weren't for the fact that Alice had been drooling over the Cardinal Alpha's pictures, Violet would have thought she was gay, unless she liked both guys and girls. A shiver ran down Violet's spine, and she quickly pulled on her top and pants. You have such a nice body, Alice pouted, looking down at her own chest. I'm so jealous. Everyone's special just the way they are, Violet replied, relieved that Alice had been admiring her body. Sure, she respected everyone's sexuality, but Violet was totally straight. She didn't want things to get awkward with her only friend. Violet was tall, taller than most girls, with a lean, athletic build. She was slim, but toned, her muscles visible in her arms and legs. Her body might not be what every girl wanted. Some preferred a softer look, but Violet didn't mind. Besides, she still had curves, with a full chest and a rounded backside that always seemed to attract attention, especially the wrong kind. Back at Nancy's trailer, Violet had been a target for creepy stares from Nancy's customers. Luckily, she wasn't afraid to use a knife to get her point across. Those who thought they could take advantage of her learned their lesson real quick. Now changed, Violet shoved her school clothes into her locker and fed it. She glanced at Alice, who excitedly linked arms with her, as always. Violet led her, taking a deep breath. Time to face whatever Lunaris Academy threw at her today. They were almost at the track field for practice when someone's loud comment caught their attention. Practice is going to be brutal. Can't wait to see these humans totally wipe out. Weaklings that they are. Violet's head whipped around to face the jerk who'd just spoken. Even without Alice, her walking encyclopedia, she could tell from his words that he was a werewolf. Only those arrogant werewolves got a kick out of human suffering. Maybe she was prejudiced, because Violet still couldn't wrap her head around humans and werewolves peacefully coexisting at school. It was a ticking time bomb. The werewolf must have felt her glare because he turned, his eyes locking with hers. He looked momentarily surprised. Then his eyes narrowed and he growled. What are you staring at, Prey? Violet raised an eyebrow. Oh, so that's how he wanted to play it? His eyes narrowed and he growled. What are you staring at, Prey? Violet raised an eyebrow. Oh, so that's how he wanted to play it? Unfortunately for him, she had a smart mouth that usually got her into trouble, not out of it. She licked her lips, ready for a coming showdown. Alice seemed to sense her intentions. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head, silently warning her to back off. Too late. Oh, I'm sorry, Violet shot back. Are you, dying for my attention, dog? And there it was. Alice gasped. Pretty much everyone nearby did too. Oh no, she didn't. But Violet did. Everyone within earshot froze like Violet had just committed a major crime. Seconds later, whispers started, and Violet caught snippets like, "She's so dead," and "Grant's gonna rip her apart." Despite the ominous whispers, Violet felt strangely confident. She refused to back down from bullies. Well, kind of. "What did you just call me?" The werewolf Grant growled, his nostrils flaring as his wolf started to emerge, triggered by her words. "You mean the same way you called me prey? Or can't you take a joke, dog?" She sassed back. "Violet!" Alice cried, desperately trying to pull her away. But Violet wouldn't budge. She was bigger than Alice, and the smaller girl couldn't move her an inch. Violet saw the moment Grant's eyes flashed amber, his wolf taking over. While she might be impulsive and hot-headed, Violet wasn't completely stupid. She started mentally calculating how many steps it would take to reach the exit where help would surely come. She was positive it would. "I'll teach you a lesson today," Grant growled, a mix of man and wolf, as he lunged toward her. Violet braced herself to run when, suddenly, someone stepped in. A strong hand grabbed Grant's arm and, in front of everyone's shocked eyes, pulled. The sound was sickening. A wet, cracking noise of shattering bones filled the hall. "Oh, God!" Someone gasped behind her, followed by the sound of vomiting. Thankfully, it wasn't Alice, or she would have been splattered. Violet froze, eyes wide with shock, as Asher Nightshade took over. He wasn't some fairy tale prince swooping in to save the day. No knight in shining armor here, just a dark knight, rescuing her with an aura of pure menace. "Hello, Grant." Asher drawled, his voice dripping with possessiveness, as he crushed the werewolf's arm like a plastic toy. "Did I just hear you call my Violet your prey? Hasn't anyone told you that I, and only I, hunt her alone?" Normally, Violet would have rolled her eyes at his words and argued, but she was too horrified to speak. She could only stand there, dumbfounded by Asher's brutal display of dominance. "I'm sorry, Alpha," Grant moaned, his earlier bravado replaced by desperate pleas. Asher remained unmoved. "Really? Are you?" His voice was ice cold as he twisted the arm further. "Heck, I am! I seriously am, Dad!" Grant cried out like a child as Asher applied even more pressure. "Naughty, Grant. Now, what do you do when you're sorry?" Asher teased, glancing at Violet. Grant followed his gaze and seemed to get the message. He instantly bowed his head, stiffly, and stammered. "I'm so sorry, Miss Violet." "What are you sorry for, dog?" Asher taunted, chuckling like he was enjoying the whole thing. That psycho. "For trying to hurt you. It will never happen again." Grant apologized, his tone sincere now, realizing Asher wasn't in the mood for games. "There you go." Asher finally let go, and Grant gasped like a drowning man surfacing for air. The move had looked simple, but Asher had not only broken bones, but also dislocated Grant's shoulder. It had been pure hell. "Now, move along, doggy. Go find the school nurse and have her deal with that nasty injury." Asher dismissed him with a wave, and Grant shuffled away, head hung low, the crowd parting to let him leave. With Grant gone, Asher turned his attention to Violet. The look on his face told her he intended to, well, she wasn't sure, but it wasn't good. Oh no. Standing up to Grant hadn't scared her, but the dark, unsettling smile on Asher's face set shivers down her spine. Nope, not doing this. Violet spun around to run, but Asher moved just as fast, grabbing her around the waist as if he'd predicted her move. "Put me down, you jerk!" she yelled, struggling as he effortlessly tossed her over his shoulder. Her weight seemed like nothing to him. "That is how you thank your savior, my Violet?" He laughed, continuing to walk, unfazed by her punches to his back. When his teasing became too overwhelming, he swatted her butt, and Violet instantly froze. This has to be a nightmare, she thought. Violet hadn't planned on making a grand entrance onto the track field, especially not like this. After Asher smacked her butt, she froze, fuming inside. Screaming would only make things worse. Not that it mattered much. Being slung over Asher's shoulder like a sack of potatoes had already drawn way too much attention. She was a walking, talking spectacle, and she could feel hundreds of eyes burning into her. At least she managed to go limp. Dangling there like she'd been forced into this ridiculous position. It would be a total disaster if anyone thought she actually enjoyed being hauled around by a psycho, like some prehistoric trophy wife. And thank goodness she was wearing pants. The memory of that creepy guy commenting on her video about what was under her clothes still made her shudder. But even playing dead didn't help. The other students' eyes widened as they took in the scene, and then, of course, they whipped out their phones and started filming, their laughter echoing across the field. Fantastic. She was about to go viral on newsfeed, again. Glancing around, Violet noticed everyone was decked out in their team jerseys, each one sporting their dorm colors. West Dormitory, as always, looked sharp in their black and green being Lunaris Academy's official color. The other dorms followed suit with their own variations. East Dormitory in red and green, South Dormitory in orange and green, and North Dormitory in blue and green. As much as Violet hated Asher and his butt, which was currently at perfect eye level thanks to her upside-down predicament, she had to admit West Dormitory rocked their colors best. But she'd never tell him that. Never. Scanning the crowd, her eyes locked with Autumn's. Or was it Summer? Violet could never keep track of which name the pure-blooded werewolf preferred. Either way, the murderous look in her eyes made Violet shiver. It wasn't hard to figure out why. Autumn clearly didn't want her anywhere near Asher. Wait a second. Was Asher hers? Oh, thank heavens. Freedom was finally within reach. Why was Autumn just standing there? Come and get your man! Violet didn't care if Autumn branded her a boyfriend-stealing hussy. She just wanted to be rid of Asher. This was her only prayer. But it didn't happen. Autumn just kept glaring until Asher carried Violet out of sight. No! Violet wailed internally. For a glorious moment, she tasted freedom, but it was a mirage. Suddenly, Asher dumped her unceremoniously in front of a man. A smug grin plastered across his face. Caught one of the runners, Coach. Coach? Just kill me now. Good job, Asher, Coach Jones said, clapping him on the shoulder. We can't have any more of these humans skipping out on training. Violet almost lost it. The nerve of this guy. Making it seem like she'd tried to ditch practice when it was totally his fault. She jumped to her feet, glaring at Asher, who just grinned back, his eyes hidden behind his shades. He knew exactly what he pulled. Her gaze then flipped to the coach. Instead of some pot-bellied, beer-gutted, whistle-blowing jerk, like she'd had at her old school, this guy was, well, the opposite. Tall, with broad shoulders and ripped muscles. He looked like a statue, and way younger than she'd pictured a coach. Definitely a werewolf. No human could look that good. Join the others, Miss Purple, Coach Jones said, his voice a little sharp. And don't even think about running off again. There will be enough points deducted and punishments to make you regret it. Violet bristled. She shot Asher one last glare and flipped him the bird, which just made him laugh as he strolled off to join his buddies. She was fuming. This wasn't over. Violet! Alice popped up beside her, looking worried. You okay? Just peachy, Violet muttered, her lips pressed tight. Oh, she was going to get him back for this. Asher might have won this round, but she'd get her revenge. Then Violet really looked around the field. Whoa, this place was huge. Different stations were set up for all kinds of activities. A crazy obstacle course with giant walls and swinging ropes, a high-tech climbing wall with moving panels, and a bunch of other stuff she couldn't even name. And then she saw it. A whole section roped off with banners that read, Advanced Training Area. That's where Asher was hanging out with the other werewolves. Violet scoffed. For a second, she thought maybe this place would be different, that the usual pecking order wouldn't matter. Guess she was wrong. Must be her lucky day. Even Alpha Roman's here, Alice said, looking over at the green-haired Alpha. Roman was laughing at something a girl, who was practically draped all over him, had said. Violet gagged. That's the jerk who'd almost gotten her killed by Griffin Hale. Mr. Manwhore himself. She hadn't forgotten what he did, and she still planned on getting even, eventually. Lost in thought, Violet completely missed what Coach Jones had said, until some girl jabbed her in the ribs. Move it, purple head! Stop filming out! The girl snapped. Violet sighed. Some people never learn, do they? Hurry up, move it, move it! Coach Jones's urgent voice pushed Violet and the other students toward the track. Humans and werewolves stood shoulder to shoulder. The werewolves were totally chill and super confident, while the humans nervously glanced at each other. Even Alice, usually bubbly and energetic, hadn't said a word since they got there, which freaked Violet out. What was this exercise all about? When everyone was finally gathered, Coach Jones looked pleased and announced, Alphas, take over! Wait, what? Violet's head practically spun around. What the heck was going on? Before she could process anything, Asher and Roman stepped forward, both with evil grins. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't good. Would the coach really just let these guys take over his class? Seriously? Apparently, yes. Violet's eyes almost bugged out as she watched Coach Jones settle into a folding chair, legs crossed, a big umbrella shielding him from the sun. He sipped a cold drink from the table beside him, looking like he was on vacation, not running a training session. What in the world? She looked away for 2 seconds, and he was already lounging. What was happening? And so it begins, Alice finally spoke, breaking silence. What begins? Violet asked, a knot forming in her stomach. They're games. We're basically entertainment. You'll see. You knew? Violet was stunned. You knew all this and didn't say anything? Alice frowned. I thought you didn't like when I talked too much. Violet wanted to scream. Not when it's important information, she whispered yelled. A little heads up would have been nice. Maybe then I would have skipped training. Trust me, you can't skip this, Alice said quietly. They make sure everyone's here for this. Listen up, everybody. Asher's voice boomed, easily grabbing their attention. Just like our last date, he said, glancing at Violet. We're here to help the coach out by teaching his class. By the end of this lesson, you can bet we'll make something out of you. That something was exactly what Violet was afraid of. The way Asher's eyes gleamed with mischief made her heart race. Even Roman, usually playful, was all serious now. He stepped forward, his expression cold and calculating, as he scanned the crowd. Fresh meat, step away from your better halves right now, he ordered. Violet was confused for a second. Then she saw 2 groups starting to form. Before she could decide where to go, she noticed Alice moving and instinctively followed. Her friend had been at the school longer, so she clearly knew the drill. Seeing Violet's confused look, Alice quietly explained. Fresh meat means the scholarship kids and anyone new this semester. Basically, all the newbies. The better halves are mostly the elite students who've been at Lunaris Academy since freshman or sophomore year. Violet glanced around. Alice wasn't kidding. The fresh meat group was mostly new students, both human and werewolf. At least everyone was being treated equally, sort of. There weren't any top-ranked students in the group, though. Violet figured the elite students were probably exempt from whatever Asher and Roman had claimed. Slowly, Violet started backing away, her heart pounding. She hoped to escape without being noticed. Taking small steps, she cautiously edged toward the elite group. Just a little further, and I'm home free. Suddenly, she bumped into a solid wall of muscle. Her heart skipped a beat. Even without turning around, she knew exactly the look. That dark, spicy scent. Her body went rigid. Violet hadn't planned on playing this card, but she was out of options. Forcing a sweet smile, she turned to face Asher, trying to hide her nerves. I'm ranked pretty high. I don't have to do this, right? Yes, you are, Asher said, nodding thoughtfully, making her heart leap with hope. Yes, I'm safe. But then Asher grinned. But, unfortunately, you're still fresh meat. He flashed his canines, and before Violet could react, he shoved her back in line. Laughter erupted from the elite group, loud and mocking. Violet felt herself blushing. That jerk! Just when she thought he might actually be decent. Now listen up, Asher barked, his voice booming across the field. Silence fell instantly. He continued, his eyes scanning the crowd. Today's lesson is about pushing your limits. We don't care if you're human or a werewolf. Everyone's equal in this training. You're not at Linares just to study and have a cushy life. We're the best of the best, and you have to prove you deserve to be here. So for warm-up, 10 laps around the track. What? The fresh meat group erupted in disbelief, especially the humans. The murmurs of shock quickly turned to protest. This was an Olympic-sized track. 10 laps for a warm-up? That was insane. They were going to die. The protests grew louder, but Asher shut them down fast. He half-shifted, his face changing into something feral. His lips peeled back, baring his sharp teeth, and he let out a deafening howl that echoed across the field. Panic spread like wildfire. The protests stopped. Everyone started running as fast as they could away from the beast behind them. Violet turned just in time to see a ball hurling toward her. It smashed into her face, snapping her head back. Pain flared, and blood trickled from her nose. What was supposed to be gym class had become Jasmine and her crew's personal torture chamber. Whoa, look! It's like ketchup! Someone yelled, and laughter exploded. Her tormentors were losing it, their mocking voices like nails on a chalkboard. Violet's vision blurred, but anger burned hotter than the pain. She saw Jasmine's smug smile, so proud of herself. Oh no, not today. Violet wiped the blood from her nose, glaring at Jasmine. Without hesitation, she grabbed the ball and hurled it straight at her nemesis. Satisfying sound replaced Jasmine's laughter with a shriek like a Thanksgiving turkey. The ball hit Jasmine square in the face. Violet watched, delighted, as she stumbled back, clutching her swollen eye. How's that feel, bitch? Violet shouted, venom dripping from her voice. But her victory was short-lived. Anisha, one of Jasmine's lackeys, grabbed a ball, her face twisted in rage, and fired it at Violet. Violet dodged it, heart pounding. But that was just the beginning. One by one, Jasmine's crew joined in, their faces set with vengeance. Jasmine never fought fair, and her followers were just as bad. They bombarded Violet with balls, aiming to hurt her. Violet fought back, dodging, weaving, grabbing balls, and throwing them hard. She landed a few good hits, making some of them yelp, but there were too many. Soon Violet was overwhelmed. Balls rained down on her, hitting her arms, stomach, and back. She gritted her teeth, refusing to cry out. The difference between her old school and Linares Academy? At her old school, Jasmine and her crew fought dirty. At Linares, the elite students fought with finesse. Every jab was calculated, every taunt cloaked in fake politeness, every act of cruelty disguised with elegance. Violet had always thought she was fit, but she was kidding herself. She was not prepared for this. Still, she was doing better than some of the others. This was lap 6, and many humans were already lagging. The werewolves, though, were totally crushing it. They ran like they were born to do this, barely breaking a sweat. Okay, they were sweaty, but it looked more like a victory glow than actual fatigue. As expected, some humans had totally given up and collapsed on the track. Violet had thought about it too. The idea of just hitting the ground and letting her aching muscles rest was super tempting. The alphas could kiss her, well, you know. But Violet wasn't a quitter. Plus, there was Alice's warning. Alice had said that quitters got the worst punishments, like cleaning all the dorm bathrooms. A total nightmare. Apparently, some seriously nasty stuff went down in those bathrooms, and cleaning up was traumatizing. Alice didn't need to go into details. Violet got the picture. That was enough motivation to keep her going. Plus, the humiliation of failing? No way. You run a lot! Violet gasped, looking at Alice, who was effortlessly keeping pace beside her. She seemed unfazed by the killer speed. Alice grinned. I love running. And like she'd just gotten a boost of energy, the deep blonde suddenly sped up, leaving Violet in the dust. Violet stared after her, a mix of amazement and disbelief. That girl was a machine. No time to waste, though. Violet focused on her own race. She pushed herself harder, each step bringing her closer to the starting line for lap 7. Just as she crossed the line, something breathing cold hit her, stealing her breath. What the heck? Violet spun around to see Autumn Carson holding a hose, a smug smile on her face. The pure-blooded werewolf looked down at her with total disdain. And it wasn't just Violet. Several other fresh meat were getting the same icy treatment. The evil elite students had stepped up their game, dousing the humans with cold water as they finished each lap, just to make things even worse. Asher and Roman were nowhere to be seen, probably busy torturing the slower runners, having a blast. Violet wouldn't be surprised if this whole water thing was their idea too. Violet stopped, glaring up at Autumn. The werewolf raised an eyebrow, momentarily surprised by Violet's defiance. But the surprise quickly turned to annoyance. What are you waiting for, Purplehead? Move it! She sneered. Every cell in Violet's body screamed to retaliate against this snobby werewolf. But it wasn't worth it. Autumn was the queen bee of the whole school, not just their class. Linares Academy was already a pain. Violet didn't want to make things worse, but she wasn't going to let it slide either. To everyone's shock, Violet reached into her waistband, then pulled out her hand, and gave Autumn the finger. Not just any finger either. It was the most epic, in-your-face middle finger she could manage. Silence fell over the elite group. A few gasps broke the quiet. Violet saw their shocked faces, mouths hanging open, all except one girl, who burst out laughing, making Autumn's face turn beet red. Knowing she'd totally crossed the line, and knowing Autumn wasn't one to let things go, Violet didn't stick around to find out what happened next. She bolted, adrenaline pumping. She could practically feel Autumn's flare burning into her back, and knew she'd just painted a giant target on herself. But strangely, she didn't care. Not today. Autumn Carson could hate her all she wanted. The feeling was mutual. 3 more laps. Just 3 more laps, and this nightmare would be over. Though Violet had absolutely no clue how she'd make it, especially now that Autumn was out for blood. Get off her! The furious screams echoed around Violet as she crossed the finish line for her 8th lap. Just 2 more to go. Oh, God. She gasped, but barely had time to breathe before icy water slammed into her from all sides. It felt like standing under a raging waterfall, the force of the water almost knocking her off her feet. Just as she feared, Autumn Carson was out for blood after that little stunt. And Autumn didn't roll solo. The pure-blooded werewolf and her loyal posse aimed their hoses at Violet, blasting her with freezing water, while ignoring everyone else. Violet figured the other runners were probably thanking their lucky stars they weren't her. She was getting the brunt of it. Where'd they even get so many hoses? But that was the least of her worries. The icy spray was relentless, coming from every direction. Violet could barely see, her vision blurred by the constant deluge. Her breath hitched, the water choking her as it went up her nose. A dull pressure filled her ears, muffling all other sounds. It was like the whole world had shrunk down to this icy, blinding torrent. But Violet fought back. She pushed through the onslaught, her body screaming with exhaustion, refusing to give in. She wouldn't let Autumn win, not like this. She knew if she fell now, things would get way worse. Autumn and her crew would probably drown her if they had the chance. Finally, Violet broke free, stumbling to a stop, gasping for air. She looked like a drowned rat, her hair plastered to her head in wet, tangled clumps. Her training gear clung to her, dripping water and outlining every curve. She shivered, grateful she'd worn a bra. As if on cue, a whistle pierced the air from the elite sidelines. One of the werewolves was staring at her, his eyes raking over her soaked body. Violet's stomach churned with disgust. But the guy's attention was short-lived, a blur of motion, and before Violet could blink, Asher slammed into him, his fist connecting with the werewolf's face in a brutal punch. The sickening thud echoed across the field, silencing everyone. A few other werewolves who'd been eyeing Violet like she was a piece of meat quickly backed off, as Asher punched the guy again. Apparently, the psycho had decided Violet was his project, since this was the second time he'd fought her battles today. What the hell? Violet was stunned. What was Asher doing? He couldn't just go around punching every guy who looked at her. This was exactly the kind of attention she was trying to avoid. Now, everyone would think they were a thing. Great. What do you think you're staring at, asshole? Want me to pluck out those eyes and feed them to you? Asher snarled, his voice dripping with rage. No, Alpha, Asher! The unfortunate werewolf whimpered. But you do have to admit, she's quite a sight, the voice chuckled. Violet's eyes met Roman Draven's. Just like the unfortunate werewolf, Roman also gave her body a once-over. But instead of Asher launching a flurry of punches at him, he merely growled a warning. Roman laughed, completely unfazed. So Alice had been right. Roman was the only cardinal alpha Asher could tolerate. Almost immediately, Violet's eyes met Asher's, and even with his glasses, she could sense the brewing storm. The intensity of his gaze made her stomach twist, with a mix of fear and excitement. He both thrilled and scared her, a weird combo. What are you waiting for, little purple? Asher taunted, his voice dark and almost sinister. Why are you running? Or do you need me to chase you? A shiver ran down her spine. Hell no. Violet didn't need to be told twice. She took off, sprinting like her life depended on it. She could hear Asher's mocking laughter behind her, but she refused to look back. She wasn't giving him a reason to chase her. Not now, not ever. She was going to finish this race, no matter what. Focused on the finish line, Violet ran past Hazel Stern, her roommate. The once perfect Hazel now looked like a hot mess, sweaty and disheveled. Just like Violet, she'd fallen victim to the water attack. Though not as soaked as Violet, she still looked rough. And judging by her stumbling run, she was about to collapse. It's none of my business, Violet told herself. Hazel was too proud and hated her guts, but why should she care? Yet, as Violet saw Hazel stumble and fall out of the corner of her eye, she groaned and turned back. This stupid, kind heart of hers was going to get her into trouble one day. She just knew it. Violet slowed her pace as she approached Hazel Sterling, who was struggling to get back on her feet. The scene was pretty funny, to be honest. Violet kind of wished she could watch it all day. But she was on a mission. Hazel's exhaustion was obvious. Her pride bruised along with her body. Violet could see the frustration etched on her face. After all, Hazel was someone who usually strutted around like she owned the place. So this vulnerable display was a rare sight. She probably hated that Violet was seeing her like this. Get up, Violet grumbled, annoyance lacing her tone. Violet didn't want to be there, helping Hazel. It would have been way more satisfying to see the disgust on Hazel's face while she scrubbed toilets. That would make her day. Maybe Alice's whole be nice thing was rubbing off on her. But Hazel was her roommate, and they both needed to pass this stupid test. Sometimes you gotta be the bigger person. So Violet reached down and grabbed Hazel's, pulling her up despite her protest. Hazel looked shocked and irritated, like she couldn't believe Violet was helping her. You know I don't need your help. Hazel spat, her voice shaky, totally betraying how she felt. Sure you don't, Violet retorted, rolling her eyes. But you look like you need it, so shut up and move. You don't understand. Hazel shrugged away from Violet's grasp. My feet hurt, and I'm so exhausted I can't even lift a finger. Just leave me alone. Violet clicked her tongue. You're exhausted, but you can still whine? Trust me, if you have enough energy to talk, you have enough energy to run. She sighed dramatically. Fine, if you want to quit, no problem. Enjoy scrubbing those toilets. Hazel's eyes widened, like she'd suddenly remembered the punishment. She stood up, her gaze shifting hesitantly to Violet, a slight brush creeping up her cheeks. So how do we do this? She asked uncertainly. Come on, start moving. I'll teach you how to run right so you don't burn out so fast. And just like that, they started jogging, Violet in the lead. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Keep your breathing steady. It'll help you find a rhythm. Violet instructed. Hazel nodded, trying to follow along. And keep a steady pace. Don't go too fast, or you'll tire out quickly, Violet added. A steady pace saves energy. Just take it easy. Hazel watched Violet closely, mimicking her movements. She focused on staying relaxed, keeping her shoulders down, and matching Violet's stride. It was still tough. Felt like she was dying. Her breath wheezing with the effort. But it wasn't as bad as before. Having someone there, showing her what to do, made it feel easier. Running alongside Violet gave her motivation to keep going. They ran side by side, almost like best friends. Almost. Deep down, they both knew this truce was temporary. Once it was over, they'd go back to hating each other. But Hazel had to admit, she disliked Violet a tiny bit less now. When they reached the finish line, Violet couldn't help but notice that no one sprayed them with water. Surprised, she quickly figured out why, or rather, who was behind it. It seemed that particular brand of hazing didn't set well with His Highness, Asher Nightshade. Someone clearly didn't like other guys checking her out. Good for him. Not that Violet cared if they stopped or not. Nothing was stopping her from finishing this race. I don't think I can hold on, Hazel Sterling gasped, her chest burning with every ragged breath. Hold on, we're almost there, we can make it, Violet insisted, grabbing Hazel's arm and slinging it over her shoulder. It felt like a mission impossible. Violet was already exhausted, and Hazel's added weight made her legs wobble. But she gritted her teeth, focused on the finish line, and pushed forward with pure willpower. Finally, they made it. The second they crossed the line, they collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. Sweet relief. Both were drenched in sweat, their clothes plastered to their aching bodies. Violet felt like her muscles had been put through a meat grinder. If I didn't know any better, I think this is a military school, she muttered. Hazel burst out laughing, but it quickly dissolved into a coughing fit. Her throat was parched. She desperately wanted water, but she was too wiped out to even think about moving. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. Violet frowned. Roman Draven stood there, a smug grin on his face. She hated that guy. There was still a score to settle between them. Roman drawled, looking down at them with fake adoration. Look at you two, all snuggled up like lovebirds. But as much as I hate to ruin this romantic moment, you've got 5 minutes to recover before we resume training. So make the most of it. Bask in each other's company. It's limited. He winked and walked past them. With Roman gone, Violet turned her head, her eyes meeting Hazel's. Suddenly, she understood Roman's comment. They were lying on the ground, clinging to each other. Hazel's head resting on Violet's arm. It did look misleading. Violet studied Hazel for a moment. Her roommate was pretty, and in another universe, they might have looked like a couple. As their eyes locked, the realization seemed to hit both of them at the same time. Without a word, they shuddered and scrambled away from each other. That was so weird. What kind of crazy stuff has Roman Draven put in her head?